What's going on, guys? So today we are going to be reading people's reviews on Germany. I lived in Germany for 5 years, and so I have my positives and my negatives. I don't think any country is without fault. I don't think any place or person is without fault. Nothing is perfect. So you're going to have some things you like about something and things you hate about something. I mean, I feel that way about the US, and I lived in Australia for 2 years. I feel that way about there too. But today's not about me. We're reading other people's reviews, and yeah, let's get into it. Overall, I greatly enjoy living here. The negatives, the weather could be better. Honestly, I agree with this so much. Like, everyone always talks about the UK and how the weather in the UK is so bad, but Germany rains so much. Like, so much. You have no summer. You have maybe like one day of summer, and then it's so hot, and then the next day it's cold as I don't know what. Like, seriously? You have to go out of your way to find a decent burger or steak. Don't even waste your time trying to find Chinese or Mexican food. So I actually put this in one of my videos, and the person was like, why come to Germany if you want Chinese or Mexican? You should get German food. And I was just like, well, when you live in a country and you kind of want some of this other food, like Mexican and stuff, you kind of miss it, you know? So I agree with this as well. The burgers, I only found one restaurant in Germany that was really good with burgers, and it's called Burger Hut in Heilbronn. And yeah, it was actually pretty good. It was pretty decent. No central AC in houses, and roads are a little crowded, too many Sunday drivers. So the AC in the houses, obviously I said Germany, it's cold. It's almost never warm. But when it gets hot in Germany, it gets so hot. So I completely understand the whole AC thing, but you probably only need that maybe like 3 or 4 weeks out of the year. Oh, and by the way, it seems like only 5% of you are subscribed. So subscribe. Hit that button. But when I say it gets hot and I had curtains up, I took about 4 or 5 cold showers in a day. There was this big heat wave my very first year, and I was like, this is awful. This is gross. The roads are a little crowded. Honestly, I don't think the roads are too crowded, especially where I lived. They weren't too crowded. I just think the roads are too small. Like, sometimes it could be a main road, and I would think I would hit the car beside me. It was a little scary driving just because the roads were just so small. The positives, phenomenally low crime rates compared to the US. No speed limit on most of the Autobahn. So the low crime rates, I mean, the US is notorious for its crime, but that's the US fault with all the laws and everything that they won't put into effect. And the things that the US isn't trying to accept it's a lot that goes into the crime in the US. It's bad. It's really bad. No speed limit on an Autobahn. So the no speed limit on an Autobahn was so much fun. I lived right off of the A6, which is notorious for not having a speed limit. And so I was just driving fast all the time. Lots of old, interesting history stuff to see, sort of like an immersive world history book. Centrally located in Europe, so easy travel to the rest of Europe. This was amazing when I lived in... Woo! This was amazing when I lived in Germany because I would fly to Rome for like 17 euros. I flew to Portugal round trip for like 50 euros. I went to Amsterdam with Flixbus for like 20 euros. So it was just so cheap to get around, and it was amazing. The people are mostly very polite and keep to themselves. Honestly, I don't really agree with the whole politeness, but I did live in Baden-Württemberg, and every time I tell people this, they say Baden-Württemberg is known for not being the nicest region in Germany. I would always say hi to people. I would walk around on the street and just walk past someone. I'm like, hey, guten Abend or Naben. So good evening. Hey, how's it going? And just keep walking. Sometimes they would answer. Other times they were like, what do you want from me? Like, I don't have any money to give you. And I'm like, I don't want any money. I'm being nice. I'm being American. They stay out of your business unless you dare cross the street on the red. Man, even though there are no cars for kilometers, they will also give an earful sometimes. This is very true. Even one time I was parking and there was a handicap sign and I didn't see the handicap sign. And this lady comes all the way across the road, knocks on my car, and points to the sign. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't see it. And this wasn't a, hey, just to let you know, there's a handicap sign. This was a, you're breaking the rules. Like, you could tell from the look of her face, like, she was upset. Like, it wasn't a, oh, he doesn't know that the sign is there. Let me just let him know so he doesn't get a ticket or get towed. No, she was upset that I was parking at a handicapped spot. But I really didn't see the sign because it was like at a house and the sign was on the house and then not on the street. And so it was complicated. Germany does a pretty good job taking care of the poor and downtrodden, which is part of the reason for the phenomenally low crime rates, stupidly inexpensive medical care, medical care, solid houses. They're mainly made from bricks, not sticks. So Germany does do really, really well with taking care of their poor population, or the arme Leute. So like their impoverished population. The people who are like begging on the street for money, Germans actually don't like them because the government actually helps poor people. And so the people that are on the street asking for money tend to be illegal, and that's why Germans don't like them, because they're like, oh, you're here illegally, because if you were here legally, the government would help you. And so that was just my take and what I was told from the people I lived in Baden-Württemberg. But who knows? The cheap medical care, honestly, I had really, really cheap medical care. I had private insurance for around 50 euros a month. But this was for expats, so people who weren't Germans, and you could get this insurance only up to 5 years. I got everything done, and I didn't have to pay for a thing. And the solid houses, yeah, sure. I don't really have any experience with houses because I lived in apartments and flats. Well, I lived in one house, but I did not have a good experience for that. I will make another video about that because that deserves a video on its own. It was bad. It was so bad. Like everything was completely covered in mold, and yeah, new video for that. So we have another one. Well, I don't think core moderation will let this one stand, but my take on the subject comes from a black-looking person trying to live in Berlin and find a job in IT. So I feel like I'm already going to be able to relate with this because I had a lot of issues with my skin color in Baden-Württemberg. And so let's see what this person actually says on how it is in Berlin. It sucks. Not a day goes by when I don't experience some racial microaggression that's making me want to put these races head through a wall. One of which happened while I was on my way to the Irish embassy with my laissez-passer application, and the complaint, "Get me out of here." I mean, why should someone with a master's degree in IT and so-called "we're crying out for IT specialists" Germany be reduced to living in a women's shelter and considered trying to hook if I were young, pretty, and white enough, because that seems to be the only thing available for women in this godforsaken racist shithole. Sheesh. I'm Irish, French, and Canadian, living like this for women from third world countries who also have masters and PhDs, can't find jobs, and the shelters are full, sort of thing. Because the bottom line seems to be that Germany's job market is treating me like black, meaning they think either African or American, and either way the CV sent gets an immediate Nein Danke. And that's it. Proof of French citizenship equals into the bin regardless. The only thing I don't hate about it is my Russian girlfriend I met in a women's shelter. So I actually understand a lot of what she is going through in this post because, like I said, I had a lot of issues with my skin colors in Germany, at least in Baden-Württemberg. I also had some instances in Berlin, and Berlin is supposed to be multicultural. So in Berlin, I think the issue goes for there's a lot of African refugees, and so there's a lot of crime. When you have refugees or poor people and you don't get these opportunities that other people get, you're going to get crime because they have to subject to stealing or stuff because they don't have any money. And there's this mentality of the why don't they get a job? And this is exactly what she's saying, is she can't find a job. And so a lot of people are like, go somewhere else to get a job, do this. But it's so hard because now you need to find the money to move to someplace. And then you try to find a job before moving. And so it's just this big crisis and this big circle. So personally, when I was in Berlin, I also had a lot of troubles with my skin color, to the point people were like, you don't fit what we look for here. Go somewhere else. There's other clubs. There's other jobs. And that was actually told to my face in Berlin. I had this also in Baden-Württemberg, where people were sabotaging the jobs that I was trying to get. I had this when I was working for the Schwarz Group for Lidl and Kaufland. when I was working at the headquarters. I was trying to move around to other branches and it just kept getting sabotaged by people that worked in the company. And I was a great worker and I speak fluent German. And so my work culture was in German. I was interviewing in German. So it's not like it was the, oh, you don't speak German, you can't get a job in this department, because that wasn't the case at all. There was actually a manager who was a very high up manager who was one of my students at Kaufland, and he made, I want to say, his whole department uneasy and uncomfortable, because I would always work with around 8 people in this department, and every time he was around, everyone was silent and didn't say anything because he was an asshole. When he wasn't around, people were always energetic, talkative, and were so like lively. And it was like, I'm so sorry that we're quiet when he's around. And a lot of people actually quit because of him. I actually tasked them, because this was when Kaufland was trying to open up in Australia. So we were trying to get all these documents translated, and they wanted more business English. So I tasked them with editing this human resources document for someone that's trying to get a higher pay, that's been with a company for 40 years. His response was, we need to fire him, hire someone younger and prettier, preferably a female. Those were his exact words. And I was like, are you serious right now? He was like, he's been in this company too long, he brings no value, we need to fire him. Someone that dedicates their life to a company, 40 years with a company, and you're telling me to fire him right now and hire someone younger and prettier, preferably a female. There was another woman in his department that he didn't want to come back because she got pregnant and went on maternity leave, and she was on leave for 2 years, and they hired someone younger and prettier because she was in her 20s, and the lady that left was in her late 30s, I think early 40s, and he didn't want her to come back because they hired someone younger and prettier. And this was for an assistant job. It's ridiculous what people and the mentality in Germany is. It's crazy when you have money. This might not be normal, but yeah. Next one, overall, it's nice, but some things are a little awkward and hilarious. LOL. I have been here 5 years by now in Germany, and these are my thoughts. Upsides. Decent mentality. People do not judge you on your looks or point fingers at you in the street. Considering what I just said before, I don't agree with this, because people were pointing at me and looking because they just didn't see a black person before, and I got some hate too. It was bad walking on the street in some places, not everywhere. It was mainly around Stuttgart, where you have a lot of rich, snotty people, and they just didn't like me. But yeah, you are in the center of Europe, just like the other person said, so it's actually really good. It's a good state. Yes, I agree. Good childcare. I think the childcare in Germany is amazing. Just how the government takes care of you if you're having children, or and of the children, because the children get paid monthly and as well from the parents. So I think it's really, really good what the government does to help raise kids in Germany. Schools are free. I don't know where this person is from, but schools are typically free in the US. Yeah, schools are typically free because you pay for it with your taxes. There are schools you're always going to have to pay for, which are private schools and stuff, but yeah, I don't know. If you're from a country where schools aren't free, let me know in the comments below. Good roads and highways are free. I'm pretty sure I paid for the roads and highways with taxes, but I think for the free part, there's some places in the US, I think also in Italy, where you have to pay to use the roads. There's a lot of tolls, and you just have to pay a couple of dollars here and there to use the specific roads. Good food control. You won't find falling ill by food intoxication. Maybe they mean falling ill, so getting sick. Yeah, I don't think I've gotten sick from the food in Germany at all. Nothing was ever undercooked or overcooked, and yeah. Good Wurst, so good sausages. Honestly, I don't like any of the sausages in Germany, but I don't like sausages, period. I don't like hot dogs. I don't like any types of sausages at all. I think they are gross. Jews have lots of rights. I personally don't really know. I'm not well educated on this point. Cosmetic and healthcare things are cheaper. Sure, I guess. Have 3 to 5 kids and you don't need to work anymore. Huh. Well, I know one of my friends, she was on her third child and she took 3 to 5 years off of work. So could be true. Very punctual people. Yes, I talk about this all the time. Germans are very exact. You don't come 1 minute early or late. Very good phone and internet deals and plans. I have to agree with this 100%. Cell phone plans are super, super cheap in Germany. Police must show up in a maximum of 3 minutes after something happens or gets reported. I didn't know this. Is this true? Let me know down below. I lived in a very small town that was pretty far away from police, so there was no way any cop or anything would be able to make it within 3 minutes because we were in the middle of nowhere. So I'm not quite sure if this is true, but let me know in the comments down below. Many free channels on a TV. I don't know. I never watched German TV. Many integration courses and ways to make you a good German speaker. I never took any integration courses because I lived in this very small town, which I was very integrated, and my German went from zero to hero in 6 months. To the point I became fluent literally in 6 months. My German wasn't perfect, but 5 years later, my German is pretty good. Pretty good. Downsides, internet is not great yet, which is true. Internet was so bad in Germany. I mean, just trying to get someone to come out and put in internet was like pulling teeth. It took me, I think, 2 to 3 months to get Wi-Fi in my flat. It was horrible. Too much bureaucracy, too much paperwork and papers for nothing and everything else. This is so true. This is so true. You have to go from one place to another place to another place to another place. There was never just one place you could do something. You always had to go from office to office to office to office to office. It was bad. But if it works, it works. Consumers don't have any rights. If you want something, the service provider pick the dates and decisions. Oh my gosh, I just said this. This is so true. Oh my god. Like I said, it took me like 3 months to get internet. They said need to open a bank account fast. Well, you need to have to contact the company bank. Wait until you get a formal letter with an appointment date. Go to the appointment, get accepted or refused. Wait for your card and PIN to be delivered to you separately on your mail post, and you got your bank account. This is actually semi-true, but because I lived in a very small town, getting a bank account was super, super easy for me. So I was actually able to get a bank account within a couple of days. So I didn't have to do all of this. I'm pretty sure it's different in a bigger city. I did have to wait for the PIN and the card to come separate in the mail, which was annoying. But when I needed money, I could just easily go to the bank, which was literally a 5 minute, not even a 5 minute walk from where I lived, and get cash out with my ID and everything. So yeah. Bank ATMs have separate functions. You can't use another bank ATM or you get charged extra. Important stuff can only be done in the first place where you have an open bank account. This is so true. This irritated me so much. Since I lived in this very small town, it was actually like a region. So I was with Volksbank Hohenlohe. And so there was up to a certain place in this region that I could actually use Volksbank or VR. And if you didn't use this bank, you got charged. And it was so annoying because I'm like, oh, I have to send money to my landlord or something. So I actually had to go back to like the town that I got my bank account, and closing bank accounts and reopening one in a different town when you move goes back to what she said earlier. It's just so much red tape and whatnot, to the point where I finally found an online bank after like 3 or 4 years of living in Germany. And I was like, thank gosh, I can do everything on my phone now. So easy. Here you pay for everything, for every television, for having a dog, for having X number of people in your house, register yourself on the city you live on, pay for your own car park in front of your building. This is true. I had to pay for TV just for having a PlayStation, and I had no internet, and you still have to pay for TV. It's like the radio tax or something, because I had a radio in my car. It was a lot. All shows are dubbed in German, which isn't an issue for me because I speak fluent German. But I will say sometimes it ruined a show for me because I think the original voices, I always watch a show in the original voices. Even if it's in a foreign language, I never watch it in English. I just put on subtitles because I think original voices actually give you something to relate to when watching a foreign show or whatnot. The original voices, the jokes, the laughs, they aren't the same when you translate. People can't speak anything other than German. Try approach someone in English and they will turn you back to you, or even lie to you saying they don't speak English. I think this is kind of true. There are some Germans that I only speak to in English because they only wanted to speak English with me. And that's about 3 or 4 Germans. And when I first got to Germany, I felt like everyone only wanted to speak German with me, which I don't have an issue with because now my German is perfect. I speak fluent German. But there was times where I was clearly struggling or didn't know how to say something and they would just like shrug it off. And a lot of my colleagues at my job, I didn't know they could speak English until the next year when I had a new colleague and her German was just so bad and everyone was speaking English with her. And I was just like, I didn't know any of you could speak English. You could tell I was struggling and not a single person spoke English with me. And that kind of hurt me a little bit. If you don't know German Deutsch, you won't find a job. Knowing 5 languages or more doesn't bring you any benefits. Even speaking German, I speak fluent German and I could barely find a job in Germany. Germans can't speak proper German themselves, even in TV shows. But even Americans or people that speak English, we don't speak proper English. So I don't really understand this. You have how you talk and then you have business talk. They're 2 different things. And so I don't think this is a negative because now, when I first got to Germany though, I was speaking like a teenager because I was a teacher at a school. So I learned German from teenagers. And so I spoke like a teenager and I would meet people my age. And they're like, dude, you're talking like you're 16. And I was 22 at the time. And I'm like, I'm learning from my students. What can I say? Many integration courses are only in German. Honestly, this is what we were taught. When I was a teacher, I ended up going to a language school. And I was told when I was in my English classes that I was teaching to only speak English and don't let them know that I speak German because then it'll be hard to get them to switch back to English because now they know I understand them when they speak German. And then when I was teaching German to my German classes, I was only told to speak German and never to speak English. So I think this is okay because how else are you going to learn a language? You're forced to use it. Some racism, but that's suspected due to Germany's background history. Honestly, there's going to be racism anywhere you go in the world. So, yeah. Some content, for example, games are censored. I don't really know, but sure. Food habits are poor, food is expensive, and it all sums up to potatoes and meat and no fish. I think the food habits in Germany were really good. I lost a lot of weight when I was in Germany, and I thought the food was super cheap. This person clearly is an American. I now know this because if they think food in Germany is expensive, then they're not American. Hard to get German nationality. Either you stay 20 years and learn decent B1 German. When I was there, I was told 8 years, and I had fluent German, so I only needed to stay 3 more years, but things happen. Even though you live in Europe, Germany lives in Europa, so your studies and professionalization are not recognized. I don't really know what that means. Sure. No hotspots anywhere. Also, it's called VLAN and not Wi-Fi. Don't ask why. Oh, okay. I was like, hotspots, what do they mean? Yeah, I guess. But sure, you don't really need it. The internet plans were super cheap in Germany anyway. ISP control your traffic a bit. Watch out for torrents and what you download. Especially music, one wrong stop and you will have the police at your door asking for a fine. This is actually very true. Be careful what you download in Germany. I've gotten so many letters where it's like, you have to pay 800 euros. And I showed my students, they were like, oh, we get this all the time. Just don't pay it. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'm not paying this. They said it's just pretty much to scare you and stuff. And all the Germans told me, yeah, don't really worry about it. That was within my first month or 2 in Germany. And I got the letters from that. And then 5 years later, I never got told to pay anything. So, I guess. Terrible fashion sense. Actually, I love the German fashion sense. There are many other things, but many good things outright the cons. Overall, personally, I wouldn't go back to Portugal. Oh, so they're from Portugal. Okay. I do miss a free internet and terabytes to download at high speeds, though. Huh. Cool. So, I didn't realize how long this video was going to be, but these were some of the reviews that people had about Germany. Let me know your thoughts down below, and let me know if you want a part 2 to this. Because this is actually kind of fun, seeing if I can relate to some people and whatnot. But yeah, see you in the next video. Subscribe!